include more healthy food choices into our diets. And then we'll also share some resources and information about how to access food programs within North York in particular. So similar to what we did with the active living session just now, of being able to point you to other information and resources to further your learning. So to start with, we want to acknowledge that in talking about these different tips for eating well, that there are a multitude of factors that contribute to nutrition. And so we acknowledge that personal income, availability of fresh produce, cultural preferences, sensitivities and allergies, food marketing, emotions and feelings, and those who are around us. These are all factors that drive our food-related decisions. And eating healthy doesn't mean strictly getting food from the organic section of the store and busting our budgets. It's more about taking a closer look at what we eat and how we eat, and how it's making our bodies feel, and how it's affecting our mood and our motivations. So this session will introduce some information and some small changes and new ideas to try out. And we hope that this will spark a relationship and a curiosity about food to understand our eating patterns. And so a little bit here about the importance of eating well and why it's important for older adults. So we know that generally speaking, seniors tend to have higher rates of heart disease, cancer, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure than the rest of the adult population. Many of these diseases can be prevented or managed through healthy eating and regular physical activity. And it is possible to change and improve the way that we eat and the way that we feel at any age. Some of you may have seen this before. This is the Canada Food Guide. So this is a resource that offers an introduction to healthy food choices. The most recent revisions to the guide are from 2019, and notably there's an emphasis on choosing plant-based foods more often. So we think this image in particular is helpful for us to use as a reference when we're looking at the meals that we want to prepare and how we want our plates to look. So ideally, half of our plates would be fruits and vegetables, and the remaining portions would include proteins and whole grain foods. And the more colors, the better. That's the motto. As you can see, this is a very colorful plate. There's a lot going on here, but it's helpful to strive for lots of color on the plates. And we just wanted to share, there is this great little 1-minute video that shows an example of what it might look like to have half your plate filled with veggies. Let me just double check that.
Zoya, we don't have sound in this. If there should be sound.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Give me just one moment here. Sorry, everyone. Wouldn't be a session without some technical issues. Okay, let's try this again. Any better? No? Okay. It's only 1 minute, so I think we'll go without the sound, and then we can just continue on. Yeah, apologies that there's no sound. We'll include this as a resource in the package if you want to rewatch it again. But there are lots of great videos online that show you different examples of how to include half of your plate to be vegetables and how that can look in a full meal. So a little bit more about plant-based foods, because I know that might be a new term for some folks here. So generally speaking, we're thinking about eating patterns. So what we tend to do most often, and plant-based foods can include vegetables and fruits, whole grain foods, and plant-based proteins. So eating plant-based regularly can mean eating more fiber and less saturated fat, and this can have an overall positive effect on health, including a lowered risk of cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. And in the resource package, we'll include some more information about the Canada Food Guide and some other information that can further your understanding of plant-based foods. And so when we're talking about making healthy food choices, again, this really depends on what's most available to you, where you are. But generally speaking, we strive to eat more vegetables and fruit when we can, and that can be fresh or frozen or canned. And we want to try to incorporate dark green vegetables such as broccoli or bok choy and orange vegetables, including sweet potato or carrots or things like this. We also strive to look for whole grains, and we've mentioned whole grains a few times, so that might be oats, quinoa, brown rice, whole grain bread, roti, bannock, made from whole grain flour. So there are lots of different ways to incorporate that. We also look for legumes, so beans, peas, and lentils, fish and seafood, lean meat and poultry, tofu, and eggs. And so these are just some examples of things that we might want to choose more often. And then ideally, we're being mindful about when we are having more highly processed foods. So that might be frozen dinners or prepackaged foods such as chips and cookies. We're going to talk very soon about how to read food labels on prepackaged foods, and that can also contribute to making better food decisions. We also want to be mindful about consuming deli meats, including bacon and sausage, deep fried foods, hydrogenated oils and trans fats, refined grains, added sugar, and I imagine this is maybe not new information, but just a reminder. And again, it's about how do we make healthier choices more often? And it's not about completely restricting ourselves. So we wanted to have a little bit of fun and do a Zoom poll question. I'm going to invite someone to launch our poll, but based on what we have talked about so far, just a fun quiz question is how much of your plate would ideally be filled with vegetables and fruit? So you should now see a poll pop up, and we'll give you a minute to respond. Awesome, we'll give you another 10 seconds. Awesome, thanks so much, everyone. So the correct answer was half of your plate would ideally be filled with vegetables and fruits. Can everyone see the results? I'm not sure. Yes, okay, great, awesome. But yeah, that's, and again, it's all about what feels most manageable for you. And yeah, so half your plate, it's a good kind of motto to keep in mind. So we're gonna talk a little bit about understanding food labels. So food labels are, so they can be found on all prepackaged foods in Canada, and they contain ingredient and nutrition information that allows people to make informed food choices. So the intention with having the nutrition fact table is meant to allow you to learn about the calories and nutrients that the item contains. It makes it easier to compare similar foods, and you want to look for foods that have that have like either a little or a lot of a certain nutrient, depending again on what your dietary needs or preferences are. And this also helps us to select foods for special diet. So we're going to just show you what they look like. Sure. So the image on the left is an example of a food label. So any item that you see that's prepackaged at the grocery store, whether it's juice or a bag of chips or granola bars, anything like that, if you turn the product on the back, you'll see this, and maybe you've seen it before. So a few things that we want to look at when we're reading a food label. So the first is the serving size. So for example, on this label, that's at the top here, and that's for 1 cup, 250 milliliters. And that helps us to understand so how big of a serving size. The second thing we want to look at is calories. So right up here, and again, everyone has different needs and requirements in terms of the amount of calories that they need. We want to look at the percentage daily value. So that's this column over here. So we can see, for example, that in this item that there is 450 milligrams of potassium, which is 10% of what our daily requirement is, or sorry, the daily value. And so we also want to look for specific nutrients that can help us stay well. So fiber, vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, and calcium, and all of those items will show up towards the bottom here. So you can see those there. And so the other aspect, the other thing that you'll see right next to the food label is the ingredients list. And I think this is really helpful because it includes all the ingredients that are listed in the product, and they're listed in order by weight, with the heaviest ingredient listed first and the lightest ingredient listed last. This information that we're presenting right now is from a resource called Unlock Food, and they have lots of good information about food labels. So we can also include that in the resource package. But you can see, so for example, in this granola bar, in this Nutri-Grain granola bar, the first item here is whole grain oats. So we might think, okay, that's great. But it's also pretty closely followed by sugar as the third ingredient. So we also want to be mindful of when we're reading labels that that we're finding options that maybe ideally don't have sugar as the first ingredient, or that we're finding some balanced options when we're looking at prepackaged foods. So as a way, again, one more quick question. So this food label is from is for 1 cup of orange juice, and we're wondering, based on this label, how much sugar does 1 cup of orange juice have? And I'll invite Saman to once again share the poll. And we'll give you a little bit of time to respond. Another 10 seconds or so. All right, thank you, Saman. So everyone can see the poll results. Can I get a thumbs up from Zohar? Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so the correct answer is 22 grams. So we can see it right here. And that's quite a lot of sugar. So even, for example, juices or fruit juices that they taste really good, and they might have like vitamin C or things like this that are still that have nutrients, but we need to be mindful about how much sugar these items have. And again, it doesn't mean we don't have to have them, but it just means we need to be mindful of how much we're consuming them. And then just a few more tips for eating well. So it's important that we try to eat regular meals and snacks. We want to try not to get too hungry or to skip meals, because sometimes this might lead us to choose less healthy foods or portion sizes that are too big. We want to eat a variety of nutritious foods. So again, when we're thinking about half of that plate, lots of different vegetables, lots of different colors that we're seeing on the plate. We want to eat slowly and mindfully and pay attention to those fullness cues so that we know when to stop eating. We also, of course, as we mentioned, we want to limit our consumption of highly processed foods when that's possible. And also, if it's possible to cook at home is ideal. it's really nice, I think, to enjoy meals with a friend or a family member, or just sharing and eating meals with others can be great, so that we're also getting some social connection in addition to in addition to eating well. And ideally, we would try not to distract ourselves while we're eating with like the TV or a computer or phone. But even I'm guilty of this. Sometimes that's just what we do or what we're comfortable with. And again, that's okay. But it's about trying to be mindful about how we're eating, when we're eating, and why we're eating. And of course, when it's possible, we want to choose water to drink most often. And so just to mention, so generally speaking, at Health Commons, when we're thinking or talking about different pillars that contribute to our health overall, these are the three areas that really come to mind. So we have nutrition, we have social connection, and physical activity. And there's some really fun ways that we can couple activities or group activities so that we can meet many of these pillars of health at once. So for example, it might be that once a week we have a meal with a friend and we might take turns cooking for each other, or maybe we try a food program together, or we go to a restaurant together where we're making healthy food choices, or maybe, as Bill said, it could be that we have a healthy choices cookbook, or we have something that comes from the community, so that we can try different types of healthy food options and keep that variety and novelty so that we get to enjoy new experiences together. So just wanted to point out there are ways that we can couple different activities together so that we're not just having the benefits of good nutrition, but we're also then having social connection, or maybe for physical activity, you're going on a walk with a friend and you enjoy a healthy granola bar at the end. So there are lots of different ways to enjoy food and time with friends and physical activity. I want to share a couple of different resources in the neighborhood. So this is specifically for North York. So there is an amazing organization called North York Harvest, and they refer people to over 40 different local food banks and community food programs that are in the region. So we will include this phone number and website. But essentially, if you're having any challenges with accessing nutritious food, they're a great resource. So you would call this number and they can connect you to a community food program in the area. And that is a great starting point. And secondly, Circle of Care. I think someone already mentioned Circle of Care, but they have a Meals on Wheels program, and they provide a meal delivery service that does include kosher options. So in terms of getting started with them, you could book a phone appointment to initially connect and assess eligibility and what is needed from the program, and we'll include the website in the resource package as well. So that's the end of our presentation, and we do have a food demonstration that's coming up in a little while, and that I think will be a good opportunity to ask maybe any specific food related questions. As I mentioned, this is just some general information, but I'm going to pause there and hand it back to Zohar.
Thank you, Zoya. Sorry, just trying to click the right button there. Okay, we hope you're enjoying the morning so far. We have around 10 minutes now for you to ask any questions that you've got of Zoya, or if you just want to say hello, or just to use the time to connect with each other if you would like. We're going to take another break at 10:45, so in around 10 minutes. If you need longer for a break, then please, you can take a break now. We will be starting our next session at 10:50. So it's in around 15 minutes time, but please feel free to ask any questions that you've got, drop any questions into the chat, or if you just want to introduce yourself and say hello, then you're welcome to do that too. But all of that is optional.